1,304 universities, 51,089 colleges, 14,450 stand-alone institutions. They make India the second largest higher education system in the world. And when the second largest higher education system in the world meets the world's largest democracy, a severely competitive entrance exam process is born. 2024 has been a rather testing year for Indian entrance exams, and we're only halfway through. The most striking of them all was the NEET UG exam, the exam that gives you admission to undergraduate medical courses. The NEET UG paper was leaked. The JEE main exam, the exam that lets you be an engineer in this country at some of the most prestigious institutions. Irregularities and discrepancies with percentile frameworks were reported. The CUET, the Common University Entrance Test, that gives you admission to undergraduate courses in more than 250 universities, was delayed and there were discrepancies in seats. Combining the NEET UG, JEE Main and CUET, 50 lakh students appeared for these exams. This is what is at stake. And this is not the end of it. The UGC NET exam, which recruits assistant professors and junior research fellows, was cancelled. The CSIR UGC NET, which recruits for technical higher education, was delayed. An entrance exam for teacher training was also delayed and postponed. And what is central to all of this, the agency responsible for conducting each and every one of these exams, is the National Testing Agency, the NTA. This is What a Week, your weekly current affairs review, doing a 360-degree on a contemporary issue, guaranteeing you closure, because no one else will. Speaking of closure, for those of you who are watching and preparing for the civil services, this topic in What a Week coincides with 5 specific segments in your UPSC syllabus. The first and foremost is education, which is explicitly mentioned in the social justice syllabus of GS paper 2. The second is bodies, which is a conjunction topic both in polity and governance, again in GS paper 2. Third is federalism. Fourth, separation of powers. Fifth, the judicial review and the role of the Supreme Court. All 3 of them are specific topics in the polity section of the syllabus. And not just this, for your convenience, you can find a consolidated 1-pager on everything that I have discussed in a format most suitable for the UPSC in the description box mentioned below. In the course of this video, I shall be addressing 7 fundamental questions. 1. Why did we even set up the NTA? 2. What is the NTA? Third, what are the inherent issues with the NTA? Fourth, do centralized exams even make sense for a country like India? Fifth, are we testing our students in the right way with such a heavy reliance on multiple choice questions? Sixth, in all of this, what happens to the good old schools? And seventh, how should we test Indian students in the most fair, efficient, and effective manner? Why was the NTA set up? There are 3 principal reasons for it. 1, multiplicity. 2, standardization. And 3, integrity. As per the official statement of the Ministry of Education, they wanted to set up the National Testing Agency to ensure students don't write a large number of tests which add to their stress and therefore hamper their development and progress. 2, In a diverse country like ours, a standardized test would ensure every student is subject to the same evaluation framework. And 3, the education mafia and the rampant use of unfair means in the education arena were real risks to begin with. The story starts in 1986, when the new education policy of 1986 for the first time came up with the idea of having national entrance exams. This idea was like the Magna Carta of national testing agencies. Speaking of Magna Carta, do check out the Magna Carta Foundation live batch, details in the description below. Anyway, based on the 1986 education policy, in 1992, a program of action was devised. And for almost 2 decades, nothing really happened. In 2010, a committee of a select few directors of the prestigious Indian Institutes of Technology, the IITs, formally recommended to the government that an organization such as the NTA should be formed. Bear in mind, their recommendation categorically stated that this organization must be backed by law so that it is transparent, accountable, and efficient enough. Just a few years later, in 2013, the Education Ministry set up a dedicated task force to devise the final plans of it all. The Union Cabinet gave its approval in 2017, and finally, in 2018, the National Testing Agency was set up as a society under the Societies Registration Act of 1860. It was set up largely on the lines of the Electronic Testing Service, an organization of the United States which is known to conduct very, very well-known tests such as TOEFL, GRE, and so on and so forth. What must also be noted rather unabashedly is that while the NTA was set up in 2017, which had almost the same political leadership as of today, the idea goes back to 1986. So therefore, in all fairness, it would be unfair to pin the blame on a certain political dispensation for an agency gone wrong. What is the National Testing Agency? The National Testing Agency is basically a test conducting platform, providing a 360-degree service to all aspects of conducting entrance exams, right from paper setting to hosting the exam, correcting the papers, displaying results, and so on and so forth. If you look at the annual report of the Ministry of Education of the years 2022 to 2023, the National Testing Agency has hosted 26 entrance exams in the year 2022. And through these 26 entrance exams, 15 million children have participated in the exam processes. This makes the National Testing Agency the second largest testing agency in the world, after China's Gaokao. What are the issues with the National Testing Agency? Let's begin with the first. Its composition. The National Testing Agency is a society that has a governing body. You have leaders of key educational institutions as members of the governing bodies. You have heads of a select few IITs, IIMs, and NITs, the ones who've been involved in their respective entrance exams. You have a representative from a central university who currently is occupying from the Jawaharlal Nehru University. You also have the Vice Chancellor of the Indira Gandhi National Open University. You also have the head of an IISER on a rotation basis. And very surprisingly, you have a doctor from the Hiranandani Hospital, Bombay. Now, the interesting part is the National Testing Agency is an expertized body. It is supposed to be endowed with the best possible talent to curate the best possible tests. Can we say the same of our governing body? The second, finances. The NTA was given a one-time grant of just 25 crores. And the NTA is supposed to sustain itself by relying on the fees that is paid by the students appearing for these entrance exams. And what has happened is that post-NTA, exam fees has actually shot up, therefore questioning the very purpose of standardized testing. Third, what is NTA's status? See, legally, the NTA is just a society which is being set up by the government and nothing else. Now, this puts NTA in a very peculiar position. It does not even have a general body. It only has a governing body. It does not have the kind of autonomy, the kind of independence that councils like the CBSE did. And because your society, can the CAG, the Comptroller Auditor General, audit your expenses? If you look at the website of the NTA and if you try to access the information, you will find a great degree of opaqueness in the financial aspects of the National Testing Agency. An army is as good as its soldiers. The fourth point before you is the strength of the National Testing Agency. An agency who is conducting 26 entrance exams does not have 25 permanent members. The NTA is hugely understaffed. You do not even have a significant staff on your payroll so that strategic decisions could be taken in-house. And therefore, what does low in-house strength lead to? The fifth problem that plagues the NTA is the outsourcing problem. Because you do not have key strategic personnel executing sensitive tasks, several critical components of the examination process are outsourced to third-party agencies. This could be from paper setting to identifying centers to evaluation framework assessments and so on and so forth. The NTA, as its sixth issue, is logistically impaired. The original intention behind setting the National Testing Agency was to conduct online exams. Has it? The answer is no. The NTA realized its limited bandwidth. And that is why, despite conducting online exams to be its primary mandate, it ended up conducting most of its exams in a pen and paper move. Not only this, the CUET, the Common University Entrance Test, the one that I told you recruits for undergraduate admissions to 250 central universities. The NTA suddenly woke up a few weeks before the CUET and postponed the CUET last minute. There were issues of center management, electrical failures, logistical problems. In fact, there were also last-minute additions and subtractions that were made to universities and the seats that they offered. And while we're talking about this, we can't discount the NEET fiasco, an educational problem being investigated by the Central Bureau of Investigation. The Supreme Court has acknowledged localized leaks in areas such as Hazaribagh. There were issues of incorrect question papers being sent to different locations in Jhajjar, Haryana, and other aspects of the country. There was a remarkably funny case where instead of distributing papers that were held by the State Bank of India, erroneously, papers which were held by the Canara Bank were distributed in a center. These are real issues. This is the state of undergraduate medical testing, a logistical black hole. And not just this, the NTA has also demonstrated technical glitches. In the year 2020, while attempting the NEET UG exam, a girl from the Chhindwara district of Madhya Pradesh, Vidhi Suryavanshi, was erroneously awarded 6 marks. When the error was corrected, she was awarded 590 marks. But it was too late. She killed herself. That is the cost of a technical glitch. And if this wasn't enough, the very same year, another boy called Mridul Rawat was initially declared by the NTA to have extremely low marks. Later on, the NTA corrected itself and Mridul Rawat was the topper of his own category. Technical glitches are a matter of life and death when it comes to entrance exams. And while all of this is happening, the 8th issue with the National Testing Agency are security blunders. This year, in the NEET UG exam, 67 students got a perfect score of 720 out of 720. Candidates were writing their exams in very conspicuously far-flung centers. There were reports of candidates from Gujarat writing an exam in Karnataka. It was also acknowledged before the Honorable Supreme Court that localized leaks did happen in places like Hazaribagh. The NTA, being the NTA, awarded grace marks to 1,563 students because of certain issues. The Supreme Court, when was hearing these petitions, asked the NTA to withdraw these grace marks and said the students have a binary choice. Either accept the marks that you've got or attempt a retest. Interestingly, 52% of the 1,563 students actually appeared for the retest. And out of them, only one, just one, got the full score again. In the same year, in 2024, the NTA itself acknowledged 1 impersonation case and 9 cases of unfair means in the JEE mains exam. Now, timing is everything. The government in February 2024 had already ensured that the Public Examination Act was passed and ready. But it was not notified until it became too much to handle, until water was no longer under the bridge. The Public Examinations Act came into force in June 2024. And one must give credit where it is due. It imposes serious penalties amounting to 10 lakhs and a crore for people who cheat and for people who are institutional service providers who assist in these measures. And while we are discussing the nitty-gritties of the NTA, while we're opening the nuts and bolts, let's take a step back and understand the 9th issue: the impact of formal schooling. There is enough research in the world that the highest cognitive development of a child happens within a school premises. And what has now happened? Because of these severe competitive exams, coachings have flourished. The coaching industry today arguably makes more money than Bollywood put together. And to ensure that students are hyper-focused on these objective tests, you now have the concept of shadow education, of dummy schools, where schools are just a formality. And this is where the final problem lies: the finesse. You have one job. That one job is to conduct an entrance exam seamlessly. Take CUET for example. Because it was not arguably well planned, there were 55,000 subject combinations that were being tested through the NTA. There were delays in exams, delays in report cards, last minute venue changes, venue issues, poor grievance redressal, and so on and so forth. And this is why the NTA is a problem that needs immediate attention. Are centralized exams the way to go for a country like India? The answer to this question lies in the nature of the Indian state. India is like no other country in the world. Education is in the concurrent list. Regulation of higher education is in the union list. So this leads to a classic federal complex, which means we have very few options before us. A straightforward option is that the central government conducts entrance exams for central universities. The state governments conduct exams for their own universities. What the center can do is actually provide a template that the states can follow. Which brings me to the larger issue: centralization versus decentralization. While centralization may work in a few strategic areas, it can be counterproductive in the rest of them all. For instance, GST is touted to be an incredible move. One nation, one tax. There are enough arguments for one nation, one election, simultaneous elections. But one nation, one exam, that might not necessarily make sense, because education is on diversity. Education is about a person's identity. The Supreme Court historically has always been pro-centralization when it comes to education. The Supreme Court, through two of its landmark judgments on minority education, one in 2002 and the other in 2005. These judgments are called the TMA Pai Foundation case and the PA Inamdar case respectively, have remarked that a national common test or centralized testing is in fact beneficial. And the Supreme Court has played a remarkable role in consolidating this. But it still doesn't solve the problem. Should India have a centralized testing structure or a decentralized testing structure? And to be fair, there are enough arguments on both sides. Which leads me to the next question: the way we are testing. Education is one of the most complex problems of the world to solve. And within education, the most difficult problem is the assessment problem. Are we testing our students in the right way? Now, what the NTA does is that it basically wants to conduct an online exam in an MCQ format. So this leads to the larger question: MCQs versus everything else. There are some distinct issues with an MCQ format. One, it promotes surface learning. You need to know the right answer. You simply need to know a factual undertaking that gets you to the right option. Two, this exclusive use has made a norm of learning, which therefore gets further pushed by coaching institutes. 3, the MCQ format will always require each question to have a single correct answer. And more often than not, even in In subjects like medicine, there can be more than one correct answer. In fact, the Supreme Court very recently directed the NTA for clarification on a NEET question. At the same time, it is impossible to test the true aptitude of a child on a social sciences subject based in an MCQ format. And therefore, it is fundamentally based on the ability to memorize, not the ability to logically process. And while there is an elimination technique, and while there are enough motivational talks in the world that will tell you an MCQ is an identification exercise, the answer is right in front of you. While there are enough problems with MCQs, while globally the use of MCQs has been fairly controversial, there are enough and more reasons why this might make sense. The first and foremost is underprivileged children. From the logistics point of view, it is easier to manage an MCQ exam. If 50 lakh people are writing the top 3 undergraduate programs, it is easier to conduct an MCQ-based test in an online mode. If not in an online mode, at least a computer-based test which could use the ever-popular OMR sheets. You could validate answers, allow for corrections, release results in time, and at the same time be accountable for it. So therefore, the answer does not lie between choosing MCQs versus something else. The answer lies somewhere in the middle. A weightage to your school performance and a weightage to your MCQ performance. Singularly, MCQs don't work. Over-centralized testing systems don't work. The answer to, like most things in life, is in the balance. And this is why the National Testing Agency has to be carefully reformed. And make no mistake, the Supreme Court is really stretching itself. It is giving directions to a society funded by the government, although yes, under the right to information, but not completely under the ambit of the state. And the Supreme Court is giving very specific directions, entertaining questions of law and fact that go above and beyond what the constitutional courts of this country should do. But do they have a choice? When papers are leaked, exams are delayed, answers are incorrect, the judiciary of this country will always step in when there is a void. It could be a parliamentary void, it could be an executive void, it could be an institutional void. 1,100 cases have been filed against the National Testing Agency since it was born. 800 of those have been resolved, but that's still quite a huge number. So the question remains, what can you do? Well, as a citizen, you have the right to file an RTI. And as an aspirant, if the education system is troubling you, the Magna Carta Foundation live batch covering GS Paper 2 in the best possible manner awaits you. See you in class.